I remember years ago, people used to say, why don't you just off back to where you came from? And it's usually a very weak insult. It doesn't really achieve anything, and if you have to get to that level, you've already lost. I never really wanted to say that. To be honest, I was more inclined not to let them in the first place. Now, that might sound bad, but we don't need any more immigration into this country. But if you're having a one-to-one with somebody and you have to actually sink to the levels of, why don't you off back to where you came from? And that's not what this man said, by the way, but that's often what's said. You've kind of lost, all right? There's plenty of more intelligent things that you could say to somebody. So this guy, Bob Stewart, he says he's made a mistake and he was caught on video telling a human rights activist to go back to Bahrain. Now, I'm guessing Bahrain is not a very nice place. I know nothing about the place, so I can't comment. Bob Stewart, however, does look like a typical Conservative MP, rather large, rather posh accent, probably not very in touch with his constituent or anybody else for that matter. Now, I'm wondering, did he enjoy his holiday? How much did it cost for them to get him over? And the reason they got him over there is there's an election going to go on. So what you do is you make sure that anybody of any influence is buttered up properly and fattened up like the Christmas turkey, to make sure that if they have any sway in any events at all, that they'll vote with the right way. Now, if it goes on, the guy says, how much did you obtain? No, in the video footage, it says this guy, and I can't even pronounce his name, the director of the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy, confronts the veteran Tory MP outside a reception hosted by the Bahrain embassy. How much did you sell yourself to the Bahrain regime? Regime would indicate it's not a very nice place. This guy says, and else referring to a trip paid for by the Bahrain government ahead of its elections. There you go. In response, Stewart says, get stuffed. Bahrain's a great place. End of. That's not actually answering his question at all. It goes on. Were you paid by them recently? Go away. I hate you. You make a lot of fuss. Go back to Bahrain. Yeah, okay. Not a very good reply at all. Now, if the bloke actually lives here, telling him to go back could be conceived as a racist slur. Was it racist by the guy? Well, his argument is, I've lived in the Middle East, and all the rest of it. I can't be racist. Okay. Telling somebody to go back to somewhere might actually mean you want them to get as far away from you as possible. Or it might just mean you don't like them because of the colour of their skin and you want them to get away because you're racist. There's many different versions to this, but what I'm trying to say here is asking somebody or telling somebody to F off back to wherever it is they come from or go back to where they come from does make you look stupid. There's plenty of better one-liners that you can use, comebacks that you can use. But in the old days, this was a thing that was said all the time. But I have to say, if you got into a confrontation with somebody in the middle of London that didn't have the same skin colour as you, and you said, why don't you just back to where you came from, you'd probably find they'd end up in Peckham or one of the other parts of London, because, to be honest, they live there. So go back to where you came from now is a pointless thing to say. In fact, it would be pointless anyway. But it's one of those things, isn't it, that they'll say that they're the most inclusive people in the world, the Conservatives and the Labour government. When you scratch down a little bit deeper, I don't like them much either. Thing is, they're getting paid to shut up, go along with the narrative, whatever. Now, it's funny. The people who protest and say they're the least racist people in the world, right, generally tend to be quite racist. And the people like me, who just come out and say whatever I like, generally like them on an individual basis, but not as a collective, okay? I was working yesterday and I met some really, really nice Indian-looking people, and they were lovely. And I was saying, aren't they just the most politest and lovely people? And they were. And you have to keep reminding yourself that there's good and bad in all sorts. But that does not detract away from another argument. And this is another point. If one lovely group, right, who are very different to the indigenous people of this country, outbreed you, So they are the predominant people of this country. You've changed the demographics. And you changed it because somebody paid you to. Somebody further up, obviously. Is it morally right? No. Is it ethically right? No. Turn that around is always the best thing I say. To one of these woke people that hate us for our slavery and hate us for colonizing countries and the way we treated the world. If the shoe was on the other foot, and some country had colonized us, how would they feel? What would they say? Or go another way. If, say, for instance, Great Britain was a huge country and Africa was smaller than it is, and we were flooding Africa and changing the demographics, these people will be screaming from the rooftops about it being wrong. So why is it they can't see it when it's us? And I can tell you why. They've been programmed. They're sick in the head. They're mental. They're absolutely off the rocker. Because they've been programmed to lie to themselves. They've been programmed to black is white, up is down. You know, like 1984. They seriously are these people. You can see some of them one day. Go to the shops. I don't know if you've noticed it, more and more, there are people wandering around in their own bubble. They're completely unaware of anything else around them. I don't know what's going on or what's doing it. I have an idea. But these people are totally devoid of any reality anymore. And they're completely reliant on whatever it is that's giving them their version of reality. And they don't want to face any other version of it. And they'll fight you. They will literally fall out with you if you were going to try and save them from themselves. They're that far gone. But going back to this, how many Tory MPs are actually racist? Probably quite a lot. How many Labour MPs are actually racist? Probably more. And there you go. It's just, it is what it is. Well, here's another thing that people don't want to talk about, right? In-group preference. It's what's in our DNA. We look at what's like us. We go for what's like us, naturally speaking, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, because that's what's programmed into us for the reproduction and everything else. You trust what you know. So you trust what you see in the mirror, right? Well, unless you're a nutter, okay? But generally speaking, you'll go for, you'll usually get people will go for people who look similar to them. There are differences to that, and there are small percentages that will go for people who are completely different. But generally speaking, this is what happens. And yeah, it's called in-group preference. That's what it is. And then you get tribalism. Now, tribalism is a great thing all around the world, but here. Tribalism is actually a really good thing here, as long as you're not white. But there it is. You're not allowed to be. Why? Reasons. Okay. That's how it is. No question. Okay. So that black group over there, they generally hang around together and all the rest of it, and they're not greatly inclusive. And they want their own space, and they want their own rights and everything. What do you think of that? Well, that's great. What about the Indians over there? Nope, I agree. What about the, I don't know, the Italians? And the Jewish? Yep, definitely. What about the white people? No, you're racist. Did you see the lunacy in this? Anyway, I just thought I'd point it out. Anyway, I'll see if he can brush this one off, Mr. Stewart. I should imagine he would. They usually generally walk on water, don't they? But it in itself wasn't so much of a story, but it's the part after that is the story. But there you go. Right, anyway, I'm going to go on to some interesting stuff. And we have a live stream later on with PCP from Wales, where there will be no swearing, obviously. And we'll be talking to them about what they're campaigning for and what they're trying to change at the moment, which is basically what they're educating the kids in school, which is wrong. It's so wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. But I'm going to go into details now because we're going to ask them about it, what they're doing, where they're at, what started them, how many people are in it. And we'll go from there. Anyway, I'll see you soon.